Who do you talk to the most? And who do you think it's most important to talk to? Maybe at the minute it's your mum or your dad or your brother or sister. Maybe you miss talking to somebody in your class or somebody at school. I know that I'm missing talking to you guys in church, and hopefully I'll be able to do that very soon. Over the past few weeks we've been looking at the book of Daniel, haven't we? And we've been hearing about how this guy Daniel was taken from his home and brought to Babylon. And even though he's in a foreign land, he still obeyed God. He was still faithful to him and still obeyed his commands. And as part of that, we read in Daniel 6, that's where our story is going to be from today. We read that Daniel prayed to God morning, noon, and night. And he would talk to God about everything. He talked to God just like you would talk to your friend. He would tell God about his day, about what had been going on in the palace, sort of talk to him about what mood the king was in. He prayed to him about everything and anything, and God always listened. And the king always took notice of what Daniel had to say. And it wasn't long before Daniel had a very important role. He was ruling over the whole land. And all of the other important people in the palace, well, they didn't like that. They were annoyed. Who does he think he is? I don't like him, they said. And so they began huddling together in the corners of the palace grounds. And they tried to come up with some idea to get rid of Daniel. And eventually one man came up with a plan. Although King Darius liked Daniel's honesty, he still liked to be told how great he was. And so one morning, whenever Daniel was out taking care of some business for the king, the enemies went to the king. And they said to him, they bowed down and said, "O great and wonderful majesty, the people know you are handsome and strong and very wise, but perhaps they do not know quite how wonderful you are. Why don't we make a new law which says the people can only pray to you and to no one else for the next 30 days? The king thought that this was an excellent idea. And by the time Daniel came back to the palace, a new law had been written and sealed by the king, and it was to be enforced by the palace guards. And Daniel heard about this new law as he reached the palace gates, and the king welcomed him and told him about this new law that people can only pray to the king. But he warned that anyone praying to someone else other than the king was to be thrown into a pit of lions. Now the next morning, everyone began praying to the king. Everyone except for Daniel. Daniel talked to God instead. At midday, when everyone else was praying to the king, Daniel was talking to God. In the evening, when everyone else was still praying to King Darius, Daniel was still talking to God. And all of the people were too afraid to disobey the king, but Daniel just could not disobey God. He was never going to disobey his oldest friend. Of course, this is what Daniel's enemies wanted, isn't it? So they snuck around to Daniel's house and they spied on him. Daniel made no secret of what he was doing. He sat beside an open window talking to God as he always did. Talking just like he was talking to a friend. And whenever the enemies saw this, they went and told the king. They told him that Daniel was still praying 3 times a day, but not to King Darius, to his God. Now the king looked very sad whenever they told him this, and whenever they told him what had happened. But he had to agree that Daniel had broken the new law. Daniel was arrested and he was bundled off to the king. And Daniel apologized to the king for not praying to him, but he said that he couldn't disobey his own God. He knew that God was too good a friend to give up. The king understood, but Daniel's enemies reminded the king that the law had been broken. A law written and signed and sealed by the king himself. So King Darius said to Daniel, "May your God rescue you." And so Daniel was put into the den of lions. The entrance was sealed with a big stone, and the king went back miserably to the palace. All night King Darius walked up and down, up and down. He couldn't sleep. In the morning the king ran to the entrance of the pit, and he cried out, "Daniel, Daniel, was your God able to save you?" Daniel shouted back, "Yes, your majesty, God sent an angel to shut the lions' mouths. They did not harm me at all. Isn't it wonderful? I knew God wouldn't let me down." The king was overjoyed to hear his friend alive and gave orders for Daniel to be pulled out of the pit. The lions roared and roared, but everyone could see that Daniel hadn't been hurt at all. And King Darius issued a decree that Daniel's God, the God of Israel, the God who rescues, should be worshipped by everyone. He said, the king said, that God is the living God and he endures or lasts forever. Now, isn't it great to know that God is looking out for his people? He cares and loves for his people, the people who trust in him. But the greatest thing about this story is that Daniel loved to pray. He loved to talk to God just as his best friend. And he wasn't going to give that up for any king on this earth. He knew how precious a gift it was to be able to talk to God. I wonder if you think of prayer that way. I wonder if you talk to God as if he's your best friend. Why not take some time now, maybe with your family or maybe by yourself, to talk to God? And why not give him thanks that he looks after his people? He looks after people who trust him. He listens to what they have to say in prayer. But give him thanks that we can pray to him and talk to him anytime and anywhere. He wants us to talk to him. Why not take the opportunity now to pray to God?